When a man pulls away, the mind instantly spirals into self-doubt. You start replaying conversations, dissecting every message, wondering what you said wrong or why you weren't enough. That instinct to chase clarity is human. It's the ego's attempt to restore balance. But the truth is, the moment you chase, you move out of alignment with your own power. Energy withdrawal is not about teaching him a lesson or playing hard to get. It is about remembering that your energy is sacred, that your presence is not a commodity to be offered to those who do not recognize its value. When you stop pouring energy into confusion, into someone who is not reciprocating, you reclaim that force within yourself. It's not punishment, it's self-preservation. It's saying to the universe, I choose to be the source of my own calm. That energetic shift, subtle but profound, changes the vibration of every interaction that follows. When you pull back, you are not creating distance, you are creating space. Space for clarity, space for emotional equilibrium, space for the other person to feel the void you once filled so effortlessly. You stop moving from desperation and you begin to move from awareness. Most people think that withdrawing your energy means cutting off contact or pretending not to care. But true energetic withdrawal is internal. It's a quiet reclaiming of focus. It's deciding that your peace of mind matters more than the illusion of control. The power is never in reaction, it's in redirection. When you redirect your energy toward yourself, your life starts to reorganize around that vibration. You start noticing things that were once invisible. How much energy you were leaking through overthinking, how much of your self-worth was tangled in how someone else responded to you. Every time you chase, you're sending a signal that the other person's attention defines your worth. Every time you pause, breathe, and bring your energy back to yourself, you're declaring that your worth is inherent. This is the moment when attraction shifts, because energy doesn't lie. People feel when your focus is on them in a way that's fueled by fear or lack. They feel when you're trying to hold on. But they also feel when you release them energetically, when you step back into your own center, and when you no longer need their attention to validate your existence. That is the point where curiosity is born in them, when they feel the power of your absence, the calm in your silence, the magnetism of your detachment. Energy withdrawal, when done consciously, becomes a mirror. It shows you the difference between what you were giving out of love and what you were giving out of fear. And it shows him the difference between your presence and your absence. You are no longer the one seeking approval. You become the one whose approval matters. The dynamic reverses because the energy has shifted from need to value, from reaction to self-possession, from chasing to attracting. This is not a game, it's mastery of self-awareness. It's understanding that your greatest leverage in any relationship is your energy, and where you choose to direct it determines the outcome every single time. Silence holds a vibration that words can never match. When a man ignores you, your first impulse might be to fill the space, to text again, to explain yourself, to seek closure that soothes your mind. But silence has a power that speaks louder than any message you could send. It's not the absence of communication, it's a declaration of inner composure. It says, I'm not chasing what is unsure of me. When you choose silence, you are not being passive, you are choosing to let your energy communicate what words cannot. Silence becomes your language of strength, your signal of self-worth, your quiet reminder that you are not defined by how someone else perceives or responds to you. Every human being feels energy more than words. When you stop reacting, the silence echoes in the space they once took for granted. That silence unsettles them because it breaks the familiar rhythm they relied on. They were used to your messages, your checking in, your effort to keep the connection alive. When that noise disappears, what remains is the awareness of what they've lost. Silence magnifies presence. It makes them feel the absence of your warmth, your attention, your emotional availability. In that stillness, they begin to notice how much of the connection was carried by your energy, not theirs. And as they sit in that emptiness, What once felt ordinary now becomes irreplaceable. Silence, when used consciously, is not cold, it's magnetic. It doesn't scream for attention, it draws it. It doesn't chase validation, it commands it. It's a vibration of quiet certainty that says, I know my worth. I don't need to prove it. That kind of silence stirs curiosity. It triggers introspection. It makes the other person start asking themselves questions they never asked before. Did I misjudge her? Why isn't she reacting? Has she moved on? The mind cannot handle unresolved energy, and your silence becomes the unresolved mystery that their mind keeps revisiting. That's the moment when emotional gravity begins to shift back toward you. But the deeper essence of silence lies within its reflection. When you stop talking, when you stop explaining, you begin to hear yourself again. You start to feel your own emotions more clearly, unclouded by the noise of their indifference. Silence gives you back your own voice, not the one that tries to convince, but the one that simply knows. It reconnects you to intuition, that subtle inner guidance that whispers, you deserve reciprocity. Through that stillness, you start to see that your peace was never supposed to be negotiated. Silence becomes your sanctuary, not a strategy. It's where you return to your own center, where your emotional frequency begins to rise, and where you detach from the chaos of reaction. And as that inner calm radiates outward, it begins to draw people in. They sense the shift before you even say a word. The silence surrounding you hums with grounded self-assurance. You are no longer vibrating in anxiety or pursuit. You are resting in certainty. And that certainty, that unspoken power, speaks volumes that no text, no explanation, and no confrontation ever could. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Many believe it means not caring, shutting down, or building walls. But true detachment is not about closing your heart, it's about keeping it open without losing yourself in someone else's chaos. When a man begins to ignore you, your emotions often want to chase the connection, to seek reassurance, to fill the void that uncertainty creates. But detachment is the art of holding space for love while releasing control over how it unfolds. It's the quiet understanding that you can care deeply and still refuse to betray your own peace. When you detach, you are not walking away from love, you are walking towards self-respect. You are stepping out of the illusion that your worth depends on someone's attention, and stepping into the truth that your worth is constant, even in silence. When you stop chasing, explaining, or proving, you interrupt the emotional pattern that feeds his comfort. He may have grown accustomed to your pursuit, your effort, your consistent presence that reassured him of his value. But the moment you detach energetically, something shifts. The dynamic that once kept you powerless begins to rebalance. Detachment creates space where respect can be rebuilt, where curiosity can reawaken, and where your absence begins to speak louder than your presence once did. You stop sending the signal of need and start radiating the energy of self-trust. That energy doesn't push him away, it draws him in, because deep down, people are attracted to what they can't control, and they respect what stands grounded in its own certainty. Detachment is emotional freedom disguised as mystery. It teaches you that you can love someone and still say, I will not abandon myself for this. It's a spiritual boundary, a quiet line drawn between your heart and your peace. You begin to observe rather than react. You stop personalizing his withdrawal and start recognizing it as a reflection of his internal world, not your inadequacy. This perspective is where empowerment begins. When you no longer need to fix, explain, or prove, you allow the universe to reveal what is real and what is not. The person meant for you will rise to meet your energy. The one who isn't will naturally fall away. In detachment, you become the mirror that reflects back truth. He starts to feel the difference between your old energy, the one that chased validation, and your new one, the one that values peace above performance. That difference is magnetic because it carries a sense of depth and maturity that commands respect. He begins to sense the boundaries of your emotional terrain, the places he can no longer casually walk into. The air around you changes. The vibration of your presence becomes still, calm, untouchable. That kind of energy doesn't beg for attention. It inspires it. It doesn't cling to connection. It invites it. Detachment becomes the invisible gravity that draws him back, not through pressure, but through the quiet force of your self-assured peace. When you turn your focus inward, something extraordinary happens. The entire dynamic of the relationship begins to shift without you having to say a single word. The energy that was once directed towards seeking validation or trying to understand why he pulled away is now redirected into nurturing your own essence. You start pouring that same attention, curiosity, and care into yourself. The questions that once centered around him. What is he thinking? Why did he stop calling? What did I do wrong? Start transforming into questions that center around you. What do I want to create? What brings me joy? What part of me have I been neglecting? This redirection is where the true transformation begins, because the energy that once felt like loss becomes fuel for personal expansion. You start to realize that the version of you that emerges after heartbreak or silence is not broken, it's reborn. Reclaiming self-focus doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means caring more about your emotional alignment than about external approval. It's choosing to fill your time, your thoughts, and your space with things that bring you back to life rather than keep you waiting in emotional limbo. You start investing in your goals, your creativity, your well-being. You start dressing for yourself again, speaking kindly to yourself again. Surrounding yourself with energy that reflects the person you are becoming instead of the one you were when you felt ignored. Every time you choose yourself, your vibration shifts a little higher. Every time you prioritize your growth, the power dynamic silently flips. Because when your attention returns to you, your energy becomes rarer, richer, more radiant, and that is precisely when the one who ignored you begins to feel your absence on a deeper level. The truth is, men and people in general are drawn to light. When you glow from within, when you radiate self, contentment, and purpose, it creates an unspoken attraction. He doesn't come back because you played a game or used a tactic. He comes back because he feels something different. The energy that once felt anxious and dependent now feels grounded and whole. The woman who once waited for him to choose her has now chosen herself, and that energy is magnetic. He may not even understand why he's suddenly thinking about you again, why your image keeps resurfacing in his mind, why he misses the peace he felt in your presence. But energetically, it's simple. You've shifted from seeking to embodying, from needing to becoming, from chasing to attracting. And in that space, you no longer act from fear or scarcity. You operate from abundance. You know that your worth doesn't decrease because someone failed to see it. You understand that your glow doesn't depend on who notices it. You've stopped trying to prove and started allowing. You begin to see that the only validation you ever needed was the one you give yourself. And ironically, that's when they come back. Not because you tried to make them, but because you finally became too powerful to ignore. Scarcity has always been one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, and it operates not only in economics, but also in emotional dynamics. When your energy was freely available, your time, your attention, your reassurance, it became a comfort, something he could reach for without effort. It wasn't that your presence wasn't valuable. It was that it was abundant, and abundance without boundaries often becomes invisible. But the moment you stop giving so freely, the moment you pull your energy back, the contrast is felt immediately. What was once taken for granted suddenly becomes noticeable by its absence. This is the quiet law of emotional gravity. The less available you become, the more your value rises in the emotional economy of his mind. It's not manipulation, it's natural balance. People only recognize the worth of something when it's no longer within reach, and your energy works the same way. When you stop over-explaining, stop initiating, stop proving, you allow the silence of your absence to highlight what your presence used to bring. He begins to feel the emotional gap that your consistency once filled. The ease, the warmth, the emotional reassurance, all the things he didn't consciously notice when you were there, start to echo in his mind. This is when scarcity transforms into magnetism. He begins to wonder where that energy went, why it feels different, why he can't feel the same emotional comfort anymore. The dynamic reverses because now he's the one sensing the lack, the one beginning to chase the energy that he once overlooked. Your withdrawal becomes the mirror that reveals value. And this is why scarcity, when rooted in self-worth rather than games, creates such a profound shift. You're not withholding affection to punish or manipulate. You're simply no longer offering your energy where it's not being respected. That self-containment communicates something powerful without you ever needing to say it. I am not available for half effort. I am not available for confusion. I am not available for anything that doesn't reciprocate my energy. That message is silent, but its frequency is undeniable. It carries the vibration of dignity, and dignity is irresistibly magnetic. It draws attention because it's rare. In a world where people constantly seek validation, someone who finds strength in restraint stands out effortlessly. Over time, this scarcity doesn't just affect him. It transforms you. You start to feel the peace that comes from not overextending yourself. You start noticing how your energy, once scattered across uncertainty, now feels grounded and intact. You feel more confident, more centered, more radiant. The irony is that when you stop trying to be everything for someone, you become unforgettable to them. The absence of your attention amplifies their awareness of your worth. They start to recall your laughter, your softness, the ease of your energy, and suddenly they want it back. But by then, something within you has evolved. You no longer need to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And that self-assured calm becomes the rarest and most attractive energy of all. Alignment is the silent revolution that happens within you the moment you stop reacting and start choosing. When you are ignored, the natural instinct is to respond from emotion, to text back, to demand clarity, to defend your worth. But every reaction rooted in fear or insecurity pulls you further away from your center. Alignment, on the other hand, is when you stop letting external chaos dictate your internal state. It's when you remind yourself that your peace, your rhythm, and your value are not up for negotiation. You begin to move from awareness instead of impulse, from calm instead of chaos. The moment you choose alignment, you become unshakable. You no longer chase answers or attention. You embody stability, and that stability changes everything. To align is to remember who you are beyond the situation. It's reconnecting with the version of yourself that existed before doubt, before overthinking, before you started shrinking to be understood. Alignment doesn't require explanation. It requires trust. Trust in timing, trust in energy, trust that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon your peace to keep it. When you stop fighting the pull of uncertainty and start leaning into the calm of self-trust, your energy begins to shift. That shift is subtle but powerful. It's the difference between broadcasting fear and radiating faith. People can feel it when your energy changes. They feel when your frequency rises from desperation to serenity. That serenity is magnetic because it carries a vibration of safety and confidence that no amount of words could ever express. When you align with your own truth, you start attracting experiences that mirror that truth back to you. The same man who ignored you begins to sense a change he can't quite define. You're no longer seeking his attention, you're standing in your essence. Your conversations change, your energy feels different, your presence feels more grounded. He begins to feel drawn toward the calm that once intimidated him. Alignment is what reverses the polarity. It shifts the dynamic from needing to attracting, from chasing to allowing. You no longer have to convince anyone of your worth because you've become the embodiment of it. The calm within you becomes louder than any words you could say, and that calm begins to call back what vibrates on your level. But the most powerful part of alignment is that by the time they return, you're no longer the same. You've outgrown the old frequency that craved closure, that feared being forgotten, that mistook silence for rejection. You have stepped into a version of yourself that no longer reacts to being ignored, because you understand that rejection and redirection often wear the same disguise. Alignment teaches you that the goal was never to make them come back. It was to make you come back to yourself. The moment you do that, everything external becomes secondary. You radiate an energy that says, I am whole, I am steady, and I am not waiting. And that vibration, the one born from peace instead of need, is the very thing that turns the energy around and makes what once ran away find its way back to you.